case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Now, real quick, I thought this was an interesting text regarding Springsteen. This is Marty in Richfield. He writes, Dan, I'm a pretty conservative guy, and I've adored Bruce for decades, been to 30-plus concerts. I know what I'm getting from him. This is what he does. He meets moments by writing songs and telling stories in those songs. He's been doing it for 50 years. He's consistent, and that's admirable. I think Bream made the most important thing about him. You can't possibly be surprised. You don't have to like him. You don't even have to like what he stands for politically. But to be surprised, it's the same concept. You're not bothered that Springsteen's political. You're bothered that you disagree with the message that he's sending. Just be honest about it, and we can all get along under those circumstances, because there just isn't any consistency. Just as Bream brought up, there are people who dismiss if somebody has a God reference in a song,
right,
they lose their minds and they stop being so political. It's like, well, no, they are being what they are, and they shouldn't necessarily be dismissed on that basis. If you don't mind other messages, who's to say someone can't have a different one than what you might prefer? But go ahead.
I have so many things to say about that.
I know.
But
it's just
I'm not gonna.
No, don't.
I need to.
Well, you can.
No,
it's up to you.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It wasn't worth the cheap shot. The Minnesota Vikings. What a morning it was today. What a month we had this morning. Today was one of those days where you have to double check and triple check everything, because something seems so spectacularly...
All right, you have to stop. You have to. I'm going to interrupt you. I made the mistake of looking at another text. I can't help it.
I'm going to change the password.
I have to. This is... listen to this. Still not a word about the kid who exposed more Somali fraud in 2 weeks than all local media has in decades. $9 billion at least stolen through the fake daycares, home health care, and transportation systems. You can't be that, what's the word for it? Tone deaf. The individuals who exposed and proved in court, not in a video, where there is no vetting that goes on, but in a courtroom, over and over again. The fraud that took place on a number of fronts, including Feeding Our Future, is Andy Luger and Joe Thompson and a number of other people who are no longer in office. They didn't do it by posting, showing up at a couple of fronts for these classrooms or whatever, these schools, and saying, hey, they didn't even come to the door. What's going on here? They didn't do it with a series of viral videos. They did it systematically, precisely, in courtrooms, brought those individuals to justice. That's what matters. Stop being seduced by what's put in front of you on a television screen. Hey, I'll say, forget $9 billion. I say it's $18 billion. Make up your number. Whatever number you want, just go with it. I'm sorry, go ahead. You were saying?
Minnesota Vikings fired General Manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah today. Reading from Kevin Seifert.
Absurd. We're living in an absurd... This is a stage, right? This isn't real life, is it?
It does feel surreal at times. It does feel surreal.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
A shocking turn after an organization-wide failure to make the playoffs last season. Ziggy and Mark Wilf tapped Rob Brzezinski, longtime capologist guy, to lead the front office through the 2026 draft. So the Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah era of running Minnesota Vikings football is over.
What?
Hard to believe. Interesting timing.
Kwesi, we hardly knew ye.
Had a couple nice perch interviews. How many times did we
have him on?
Twice,
4 or 5, maybe?
2 or 3.
Oh, not even that many? Okay.
We had him on at training camp usually. Taller than you'd expect.
Yes, he's tall and lean.
He's a tall guy. He keeps his BMI
is right up there with any of the In fact, I bet you it's a better BMI than KOC's.
Do you think that was part of the tension?
Well, might have been envy and jealousy.
Maybe KOC asked him to spot in the weight room, and Kwesi said no.
Right.
And then he asked him for a quarterback, and Kwesi said no. I don't know. But anyway, this was the second bombshell news of the day, because we can fly through these, and I know we got Lavelle to talk about it, because 2 hours before that, we got the press release that Derek Falvey and the Minnesota Twins mutually agreed to part ways. And I love the Twins statement. The statements today have been off the charts. So much thanking for contributions, so much grateful for your time. The Vikings, I think, take the cake after they fire a guy. They put the thank you Kwesi graphic on Twitter with a purple heart. Why
did they do that?
I don't know. Is he going to print it out?
Is anybody fooled by that?
No, I don't know why they feel like they have to do it.
You have to fire him, you fire him. Doesn't mean you have to savage him.
No.
But it's just so phony.
But we don't need the picture and the graphic and God, thanks for all the memories.
Well, I'm sure it'll mean a lot to him.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like I said, I'm sure he printed it out, and I'm sure it's in his folder right now. But a bizarre day, really a bizarre morning on the Minnesota sports scene that we've all had to react to for the last, 7-8 hours. Been pretty crazy. So which one surprises you more? Let me ask you that. I'll do a Brandon Molesky toss-up or first take toss-up. What surprises you more? Derek Falvey, 10 minutes before they go to spring training? Or Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah? Or third option, are you just going to read another text?
Third option is the next another text. Listen to this.
Do I have to?
Guarding consensus as always. The whole world is laughing at us for putting up with these frauds. As in, I assume he's talking about not academic fraud. That's the University of Minnesota from the Clem Askins days.
We still need to hang the banner.
I'm talking about feeding our future frauds. How am I guarding all of these scandals? We've savaged them, had endless guests on about it, talked about it so much that a bunch of lefties are mad at me for emphasizing it so much. How is that guarding consensus? How is it guarding consensus to be more interested in cases that are argued successfully in court to prove the fraud than, again, some social media goofball showing up at places and saying, I proved it, here it is, here's another document that says here's what we're doing, when nobody vets that. There's no jury for that. Sorry, you were saying? Bigger surprise? Bigger surprise... I actually think the bigger surprise is the Falvey news, because my assumption was that country club, they were all in it together.
Right.
And they were just going to keep working together, even though nothing substantive was going to get done, no matter which poll ad you put in charge. And in the case of Kwesi, I didn't expect it right now, but I thought this was always more of a possibility because the drafts have been as unsuccessful as they've been.
I have a few regrets, about our show over the years. I really regret now not grabbing Derek Falvey and Derek Shelton when we were in the Skyway cage. They walked right by us.
Yeah.
They waved. They're very pleasant, nice guys. I wonder where they were going now. That's what I want to know. Were they going to Cardigan Donuts in the Skyway to get a coffee and talk about how Falvey was stepping away?
Well, how?
Because they were leaving the offices, right? Yeah, they were in Target Field.
Well, they were both smiling, though. So
they're pleasant individuals.
Yeah.
But maybe they just needed an off-site meeting and had to go to the Skyway.
Well, if you're the manager, how do you feel about the fact that the guy who allegedly hired you is gone already? Unless the feeling is, well, I know Falvey was on borrowed time, so I'm fine moving on.
Maybe that came up.
Who knows?
Maybe
I have no idea.
came up.
It's hard to say.
Wolves won last night. They beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was a great game. Great performance.
Terrific game.
I mentioned my buddy Todd on Enough Said today, who texted me this morning, who was there, who had an awesome time at the game, but as a Wolves fan wonders and is annoyed by the fact that they couldn't bring that type of defensive effort every single night. Because how about the play where Dante just mugged?
Can't you just enjoy the outcome? Why does he like that? Your pal, the season ticket holder.
My buddy Todd?
Yeah, Todd.
Because he wants
enjoy
more.
The season.
He wants to win a ship.
Yeah, no, I get that.
How about
their defense was that? I think that was as good a perimeter defense as I might have ever seen them play, quite frankly. And you could tell from the jump, Oklahoma City wasn't ready for it. Or they thought, well, maybe they'll do a couple minutes and they'll get bored with it.
Right, which happens.
And it does happen. And in this case, they did not.
How about the play where Dante absolutely fouled SGA like 10 times, and then the ball
You loved that one.
Well, I do appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
And there's another play where Randall was just riding a dude all the way up the court. So, and we got to stop. It was good. Do it.
Well,
try it.
You almost have to. I think that is the way. And it's the old deal. Well, let's just test the refs.
Yeah.
And let's see. Because that, frankly, is the rap beyond the flopping. The rap on Oklahoma City is the old, and this is not the first team that's been accused of it.
Yes.
If you foul hard or consistently from the beginning of the game to the end, they're less likely to call it.
They can't call every foul.
Let's just do it. Let's see how that goes. And that's what has frustrated some people. And so to a certain extent, you say, well, if you believe that, then go ahead and maybe you try it back at them and see where it goes. But as you said, the question's going to be moving forward. Will it have any impact on the
Giannis trade?
The Conley approach?
Yep.
How aggressive he is, because the trade deadline is a week from yesterday, right? At 2 o'clock Central Time. So it's coming up. This weekend, moving forward, it's going to be crazy, I think, with how many rumors. But one of the concerning things is there are a lot more people saying that the Bucks' demands right now are so outrageous that it's more likely he's going to end up getting traded in the offseason than before the deadline.
You know what? Which I'm actually fine with, too.
Yeah.
Because I read that as well. And they should be if you're the Bucks. Like, they should be if you're the Bucks. They should not be giving him away. They shouldn't be doing the Luka, right? They shouldn't just be giving him away for Anthony Davis and whoever else the Mavs got.
No.
Like, they should be shopping Giannis.
Yeah, in their defense, they absolutely should maximize if you're going to give up somebody that good.
So, Wolves fans, this is interesting. Wolves fans were like annoyed in some level because of how well they played last night. Wild fans, I think, were annoyed that it was such a dominant performance last night against Calgary.
They didn't get a mention.
It was it was just a boring game. I was reading Russo and I watched I actually like when games are staggered, when you got the Wild at 7 and then the Wolves at 8:30. It's nice.
A late start though.
Yeah,
in the glass.
I went to bed at halftime.
Yeah.
I went to bed at halftime, but I went to bed happy because of how the team was playing. The worst is when you stay up till midnight and you're pissed.
Yeah, that's true.
Then you're doom scrolling, you're mad.
That's true.
I'm texting Johnny. So I just went to bed and said, if they lose this, that's all right. They're playing well, whatever. But the Wild were absolutely dominant last night. Got 2 quickies in the first period and held on for a 4-1 victory. Would you like to read another text?
Yeah, well, this one actually lightens it up a little. Kwesi is out. You want to know the real reason he's out? Nick Shirley exposed him for being a fraud, too. So, that's well played. Because it makes me chuckle, so it lightens me up a little bit.
Kind of topical.
For the moment. Mm-hmm. It is topical, and it is satirical as well. That text will piss off everybody.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I think, so this segment reminded me of the Power Trip. They do What Really Matters, where Corey reads a sports score.
Yeah.
And then Chris Hockey says something that has nothing to do with anything, and then they talk about it. I think we may have stumbled upon This is a way to let you read some text.
I'm going to shut it down the rest of the show.
I don't know. Let's shut it down during Lavelle because we have no idea what Lavelle's going to say about anything, as we've learned. I don't want you to miss like something crazy Lavelle has said, like about his brother.
True. That's true.
You know, about his brother. You know,
passing gas.
Yeah, Dutch ovening his his cruise room.
Is that the expression for that?
It's one of them.
Oh.
Beijing underwear.
Yeah.
You know, a lot going on down there was one that Lavelle gave us.
I
remember all of them. They're all burned into my brain.
There's no question.
Let's stay on schedule even though we're late. The final keyword for bonus bucks, $. Go to KFAN.com. If you'd love $1,000, go to KFAN.com, keyword $.
When we return, Ode to a Dead Gal. That's next. This morning, maybe right before noon, actually, when we were about to tape this evening's edition of Enough Said for Fox 9, that Catherine O'Hara has died at the age of 71 years old. It's interesting because, and I guess I should set this up. Most people, I think, are familiar with the name. But I will give you some details of some of the outstanding singular roles that she was a part of. Beetlejuice, Home Alone, Schitt's Creek. The list goes really on and on and on. She got her start, of course, at Second City in her native Canada. She, to me, falls into the classification of, I feel like anymore, that some actors and actresses are polarizing. Well, some people like him and some people don't. She strikes me as one who struck a certain chord in almost everybody where I don't think there's any debate on, at the very least, how likable she was and how entertaining she was.
How funny she was.
And very funny she was in a number of very outstanding roles. Now, Home Alone, it's going to be hard to top. That movie came out in, of course, 1990. Best in Show, I think that movie to me remains one of the most underrated comedies ever done. Quite
the whole
frankly.
Christopher Guest,
all of the Guest stuff is outstanding.
Eugene Levy and all of them.
And she's tended to be a part of that ensemble as well. I didn't even know she was battling anything. There's a couple reports. I don't think there's anything official. A couple reports indicate maybe dealing with cancer. I don't know for sure in her case, but I think came in as a shock in some measure because I had not heard anything. I don't think people knew people were aware if she was dealing with any kind of illness or afflictions. Correct?
No, that's why it was stunning.
Yeah,
when we heard about it, and the age 71, of course, and the fact that she's just been recently working. You mentioned the shows, and she's been in a lot of stuff here recently. This is a tough one. It's a really devastating one.
Yeah. She won a number of awards, but regardless of that, was just had great comic timing. I always felt like a great warmth, as I said, and kind of across the board. Pretty much every role she's been, I think, has been memorable to more memorable. The ensemble movies with guests being probably the two probably the best ones. I think Best in Show is at the top of that group.
Yep.
I thought Waiting for Guffman was good.
That's kind of the one that got it all going.
That got it going in 1996, I think, and then Best in Show was in 2000. Just a terrific career and someone who, as I mentioned, I think was not in any way polarizing like some actors can be. Now, I'm not talking about politics. I'm just talking about, it's okay. I think everybody warmed to her and her roles. And that's why almost everybody that I've texted with today or talked to today, it's like, Catherine O'Hara died.
I know.
Like, what? How is that possible? And I've said this before. There's certain people that I just, the whole idea of people being gone is always difficult, right? It is awkward. But there's just some people who seem to be so full of what they did and so full of living that it's like it just doesn't even compute. What do you mean Catherine O'Hara is not on this earth anymore? And we all know it happens and we know it's inevitable, but it just seems to hit home more for people who seem to be as vital as she was, and she always struck me as being very vital.
And her final big thing, the run as Moira Rose, is as good a run, on Schitt's Creek, like you mentioned.
Yes.
And to watch the last, which we discovered during COVID. I know it had started before that, but it's one of those streaming shows that you can just watch forever, and you still watch it. We still watch that show. But to hear Eugene Levy, the father, and then Dan Levy, the son, who put that show together, when they were talking about putting it together, they basically agreed, like, we have to get Catherine. We have to get her on this show.
Yes.
The show, sure, we can do it, but she is going to be the key to this whole thing. And just her whole persona that entire time. She even talked about, you can't do a Moira Rose imitation because there isn't one. Part of the bit is she just changes her accent and her inflection. She's got a different voice for every occasion.
She does. She's talented, man. She was talented.
And so it was, and she was really, in that show, the one that was the most unglued most of the time, and they all kind of had to react off that. It's unbelievable.
Well, and if you go back, go ahead.
But the funny part about that run was that then people, obviously I'm old enough, so I remember that she was Kevin McAllister's mom in Home Alone, and I remember Macaulay Culkin's mom in Home Alone too. And when people made that connection, like, did you guys know Moira Rose was in Home Alone? It's like, well, yeah, she's had a pretty good run, Catherine O'Hara.
She really has.
She was great in all of that stuff.
And Home Alone, again, there's a significant part of that movie that she's not in, right?
Yes.
And yet, if you ask me, who are the keys to making that movie work, she's very close to the top of the list, right? More than the husband, who's the husband? Was it John Hurt? What's one of the Hurts?
Yes, Hurt.
Or Hurd. Is it Hurt or Hurd?
Hurd. Yeah, he just passed away a few years ago. Yeah.
I didn't even remember that. But to me, the one word, Kevin, I mean, everybody knows what that means. Nobody has to explain what that means, right? The moment in the on the American Airlines plane, it's such a terrific role, and even the part where then she's back in it, how she gets back there, right? And who helps her? John Candy, right?
Yep, the polka king of the Midwest.
Yeah, it's just that those are timeless roles that stay with people because there's so much warmth and grace in them. And, that's a lot of what defined John Candy, too. And, of course, they worked together.
Yep.
Going way back when. So a huge loss when it comes to motion pictures and things that we always kind of relate to and have memories of and give us occasionally some sense of comfort, even when the world seems to be going somewhat mad. Bottom of the hour break. If you have any observations on the career of Catherine O'Hara, let us know. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. We'll hold on to those and get back to them a little bit later. Lavelle will join. We'll get his reaction. First, probably to the Twins news, because we've devoted much of this program to the Vikings news today on what will now be one of the great calendar of calamity days in recent memory, according to Dan Minnesota, who's actually bitter that they didn't stagger them.
Right.
So that we have more days to fill up.
We always find something, though.
But we always do find something. And we'll talk to him about what the hell's going on with his Twins and maybe get Vikings reaction and maybe a couple of tips for Russo Radio headed across the pond to cover the Olympics. Maybe Lavelle, who's, covered an Olympics or two and left his underwear in one of those locations, might give Russo some tips as well. I think Russo isn't leaving until Monday. Stay tuned. Regarding Catherine O'Hara, if you have not seen the recently released John Candy documentary, I'd highly recommend it. While not the focus of it, obviously, she was so intertwined with Candy in Second City, she is featured prominently throughout. It's surreal to see someone so recently remembering her friend gone 30-plus years only to pass months later. I keep being told about how good the Candy doc is and how emotional it is. We've talked about it before, but I still have not, and we talked about, I guess, how effective Steve Martin is in sort of at the ending of it, laying out the end of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's just, Have you seen it?
No, but you mentioned effective. I've also heard how affected they all still are about that he's not here.
Yeah, that he's not here.
Bill Murray, Steve Martin, obviously Catherine O'Hara, and many others, that it's still, all these years later, hurts.
No question about it. Lavelle Neal III is with us, so if you'll pot him up for me, Gaardsy, we will start our conversation with him and try to cover a lot of ground with you, Lavelle. We've talked a lot about the Vikings. We had Ben Gessling in studio, so we'll get to the Vikings eventually, the way they made news today. And really, they've kind of, I think, taken a lot of the oxygen away from the Twins move. Because they're the Vikings, obviously, and the Twins right now are sort of just barely existing to the general sporting public. But you covered baseball for a long time. You know a lot of people there. So I'll just ask you flat out, how gobsmacked were you when they made it official and announced a mutual parting of the ways with Derek Falvey earlier today?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, first of all. Yeah, I was warned last night that they were going to have some sort of announcement, and I said, "What, is this supposed to be like day-changing news?" And the reply was, "No, but it's something you'd be interested in." And that left me wondering, what the heck could it be? And I was starting to think in terms of, okay, they've got a spot in the 40-man roster open. Maybe they're making a player acquisition. That could be interesting. I don't know. Had no idea that this was going to be the move that they were going to announce. And yeah, I think gobsmacked was a good way to describe my reaction when I found it out. But, once it was explained to me, it kind of seems like they were headed down this path here. It's been a crazy last several months for Twins and Twins fans. I mean, employees over there are kind of a little frazzled by stuff that's been going on with the team being pulled off the market, and the announcement of the limited partners, and then the limited partners not being revealed until December. So everybody was like, what the hell is that all about? And then learning that they're not going to put money directly into the team, at least not right away. The thing with Falvey really dates back to when Tom Pohlad was announced as taking over as executive chair from Joe Pohlad. And Tom, strong belief in, his belief is that the jobs of baseball operations and business operations should be separated and not on one person's plate. He believes that the job calls for 100% attention. Mm-hmm. It requires someone who's adept in HR and finance, corporate sales, that side of the gig. That I don't know if that was really up Falvey's alley. So I was surprised when Falvey was given this title, and I think just thinking that he was a baseball guy, and it is. In the end, he is a baseball guy. He's not much of a business guy, and Tom Pohlad felt the job required someone with that expertise in that area. Now, someone asked in the press conference, well, why do you just put Falvey back as director of baseball operations? Well, it sounds like they were having a conversation about exactly what the role would entail, and the more he talked, I think they realized that their vision for the near future may not be aligned. And I think that led them down a path here where they decided to mutually part ways. It was not Derek Falvey quitting or him necessarily getting fired, but them agreeing that now would be a good time probably to walk away. The timing's weird. But once again, I think you go back to when Tom was put in charge and he's been looking at things and making decisions. They started walking down that path ever since the day he was announced. So, Falvey's going to move on. He's been there 9 years. He's made a chunk of change, so it's not like he's not leaving broke. So it's easy for him to say, you know what, we're not on the same page here, and I'm not afraid to admit that, and I have no problems, parting ways, and allowing you to find someone that's more suited to the role. So that's kind of how it went down.
Yeah, what you say makes a lot of sense. I never understood the merging, but assumed that for some reason the Twins wanted to do it that way. And I guess if you're Falvey, you're not going to turn down, I assume, would be more money, or certainly more responsibility as well. The timing for me, even if we've had this, changing of the passing of the baton from one Pohlad to yet another, is to me utterly dysfunctional. There's no, to me, good explanation for coming to this at the time. What are we, 2 weeks away from spring training? I don't know, but no one's going to convince me that a well-run organization decides to make this move right now, 2 weeks before. That part of it, to me, cannot be justified.
No, it's kind of. I mean, it is definitely hard to, but when the family decided to make the move from Joe to Tom, it started the ball rolling on how Tom wants to do things his way.
Why? Let me stop you again. Why can't they be gone, man? Honestly, give somebody else a chance. And they may screw it up even more, but give somebody else a chance to show their vision. Why would we? I have no more faith in this Pohlad than any of the others. And by the way, is what Suhan wrote today true? Were you in on this? Let me see if I can find the comment here that got my attention. Oh, here.
You got to remind me because I've been writing Olympic stuff all day.
Tom Pohlad has yet to say anything that would inspire confidence in a discerning fan. During a Zoom news conference on January 30, he asked that we stop obsessing over payroll size. He can decide, think anything he wants, but he doesn't get to decide what people obsess over. And how can you, with a straight face, be surprised that in this town there might be a little obsession over payroll size when the Pohlads are obsessed with payroll size?
I hear what you're saying, man. And I think it would serve him better going forward, just not even mouth the words payroll. Yeah. At this point, it's going to be actions over his words. People have heard the words over the last, I've been here since 1997, 1998, and that's when, I watched the payroll get shrunk and to rock bottom levels. So yeah. I don't think that it serves the Pohlads well to have any conversations about or make any comments about how people are going to obsess or not obsess or talk about payroll, because it's a thing. It's a thing in baseball more so than any other sport, and it's a thing here because historically the Pohlads have not spent a lot of money, and they tried. You know, they went the Josh Donaldson route, the Carlos Correa route, and those guys, they ended up getting out of both those contracts. So I just want to warn you, man. I think the Lavelle theory is in play here. That if there's 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, once baseball has its economic house in order, which they believe they will, I'll believe when I see it. But I just think franchise value is going up with a new TV deal. And maybe a salary cap is going to make the Twins more attractive to be sold, and for a higher number than the $1.7 billion they're evaluated right now. That's my theory, that they will not be owning this team within 5 years. They're going to cash out.
What do we know about the new, I guess you call him, the guy in charge of the baseball side of the operation?
Jeremy Zoll?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they hired him away from the Dodgers years ago, people were telling me he's going to be a future general manager. They saw that in him, 6-7 years ago. I can't remember how long Jeremy's been here. I think it's been about 7 years. They said that stuff about him when the Twins first hired him, and he's cut his teeth in different roles within the organization. We butted heads one time because whenever I would see a minor leaguer leave a game, I'd start wondering if he got injured, and I was starting to call Jeremy about, okay, what happened to this guy? He would get mad at me and yell at me because I don't have to tell you this right now. And so we didn't get off to the best start relationship-wise. But we're cool now. Jeremy's personality-wise, he's mellowed out a little bit. He's more pleasant to talk to. You're going to hear more cliches from him than you're going to hear from Derek Falvey for sure.
How is that possible?
Well, Falvey's a rather loquacious guy, man. He just he uses about 200 words to not really tell you much. Jeremy may say it in 50. So he's just a little more understated than Derek. So, but I don't know. I know he's got experience in helping with trade negotiations and contract signings and free agent acquisitions.
Yeah.
But now I don't know. He's going to handle the big ones now, and I don't know. That's something we got to see how he performs. So I don't know I don't know if he has what superpower he has that makes him a whiz at transactions. I don't know if he was the one behind trading a half a year of Nelson Cruz for Joe Ryan or not. But we're going to find out now for sure.
Here's what I want to believe, but I also want the truth from you. So even if what I want to believe is false, you can tell me that. I can take it. What I deep down want to believe is that part of what happened here is that even Derek Falvey got tired of towing the company line for the Pohlads, and that even he said, wait a minute now, I can't do that too. We can't, in good conscience, do that as well. Is there any chance that played any role on these two sides falling apart from each other?
You definitely could definitely could connect the dots and wonder why, especially going back to after 2023 when they beat the Toronto Blue Jays in the first round in the playoffs to end the playoff losing streak, and they decided to go the other way with the payroll, right-size the payroll with, I believe, Joe Pohlads' unforgettable description of what they were doing at that time. It definitely wasn't Falvey's idea to trade away 10 players at the deadline, or 11 if you count.
Yeah.
Randy Dobnak. That wasn't his idea, I was told. That was coming from upstairs. I think firing Rocco was more of a family decision than a general manager's decision, a Falvey decision as well.
Yep.
So you can argue that the last couple of years have been pretty tough in terms of what Falvey had to work with from a payroll standpoint and what players he could acquire. And he has a hell of a relationship with Rocco, so I was really surprised that Falvey had to let him go. But once again, I'm pretty sure that came from above. So, yeah, if you add that all up, he may have been a little frustrated, but, maybe he was respectful still of the opportunity the Pohlads gave him and everything, and that's why, this was more amicable than a heated breakup. But yeah, you can add up all the instances here and arrive at that conclusion for sure.
Let me ask you a question Gaardsy asked me during the top 5 at 5. Of these two moves, the Vikings firing their general manager or the Twins and Falvey deciding it's time we just go our separate ways, which surprised you more?
Falvey surprised me more. I think with Kwesi, there was rumblings,
yes,
there's some rumblings with Kwesi, and the track record with Kwesi too was his drafting hasn't been great. He's had to compensate that with free agent signings, and some of his free agent signings have not been great as well. So this goes back to I can't remember his first name, Davenport, the defensive lineman that they signed.
Oh, I remember. Yes, is that Marcus? Marcus Davenport? I'll double check.
Marcus Davenport. Yeah. He immediately got hurt. He barely played. Yeah. And I know the coaching staff wasn't happy with that addition. So I just think there were some things that Kwesi did that was building up toward this. I do that annual look ahead to 2026 column when I pick like a team, a player, and an executive to watch in 2026. And I picked Kwesi, and I was a little nervous about it because I said, okay, what if I write this and he gets fired? Well, they won't fire. No, I said, well, I want to write Kwesi. That's why I wanted to write about Kwesi. Mm-hmm. I said that this was like early December. And I was like, but what if I write it and he gets fired? So, well, they probably wouldn't fire him until after the playoffs. And so I'll go ahead and write Kwesi as the guy to watch because I said he needed to have a year. He needed to have a good offseason in which he hits on free agents and actually drafts some guys. And that said, he hit on Addison. The guard he signed looks like a keeper as well. It hasn't been totally barren, but he has nothing to show from his first draft.
Yeah, the percentages are not good enough.
So I think there were some demerits under Kwesi's name that were weighing him down a little bit. So that's why I'm not that as surprised at Kwesi being fired than I was with Falvey.
Yeah, I answered it pretty much the same way because I don't know that I expected the Kwesi news because I thought maybe we were past the window where they do their vetting and that they had decided, all right, we're going to put him on double secret probation and live for another year. Where it gets tricky to me because look, Kwesi's draft record leaves him vulnerable. But I firmly believe, and I'm curious to get your view on this, if you want to evaluate the way this team has progressed at quarterback, I don't think that's at all a Kwesi operation. I think on all of those decisions, he has often deferred to what the quarterback whisperer prefers because he feels like, well, that's the guy. That's his area of expertise. So that's where I don't think KOC can be let off the hook entirely because if a quarterback's the most important position on a team, he's as responsible. I think his fingerprints are all over this even more than Kwesi's are. What do you think?
I think it's at least a collaborative effort between Kwesi and KLC, if not more KLC than Kwesi. Because when you're dealing with the most important position in sports, you got to have buy-in from the head coach or at least the offensive play caller, which is KOC in both instances. So he had to be for this plan too to switch over to JJ McCarthy and see how that would go, and that ended up being a mistake. The kid has had basically a year and a half without meaningful development, one because of knee injury, and this year because of 3 or 4 different instances we had, he was out of the lineup. Now no one can see that coming. No one's in his body, knows what he's feeling and knows what he's going through. But it's happened. And so the plan he put together to turn the keys over to JJ did not work. And both of them have to take the blame for that. And, KOC's great statement about quarterbacks don't fail organizations as much as organizations fail quarterbacks. Well, they have failed JJ, but not putting the right structure around him. So I agree with you on that. I can't put because if you go back to that draft, I had no problem with taking JJ McCarthy. I was happy. No, I like this kid. I like him in Michigan. Yep. He's got talent.
Yep.
But I think they were fooling themselves thinking that even though he was ready for prime time after not being able to play or practice that rookie year. So, and they're in a box now with him. Are you worried that it's year 3? You got to start him next year? I don't think so. I think they need to bring in a good quarterback. And if the good quarterback takes off, then you keep JJ on the bench. And if not, JJ will have a year to try to get his act together. And then year 4 will be a big year for him. But, just going back to your original statement, this is on KOC as much as it's on Kwesi.
We'll finish with this. Russo, who joined us yesterday, is heading across the pond to cover the Winter Olympics in, what is it, Cortina, and what are the 2 locations? Milan
and Cortina d'Ampezzo.
Exactly, well stated. And you've covered an Olympics or 2. So what's your best Olympic travel advice that you think might be useful to Russo? Because he's not leaving until Monday, so I'm sure he's either listening now or he'll listen via podcast eventually. He's always looking for good advice, and you're kind of a world traveler, so what's your best advice for him? And it can be underwear related, but it doesn't have to be. It can be related to other things as well.
Well, the underwear thing is important, I think, because especially I don't know if he's a trinket or a memorabilia guy. He's willing to bring back some stuff from there. You're going to get a swag bag, because I got one in Beijing. You just got to make sure you have room to carry all that stuff. Now, the underwear thing allows you to save space in your luggage. The only problem with him is that my underwear is probably larger than his, and so when I got rid of my underwear, I had more space in my suitcase than he'll have. So he's going to have to make sure he's going to have to make sure he's going to have enough room for whatever he wants to bring back. 2, he's got to make sure there's a Starbucks in Italy. I don't know. I've got to imagine there's got to be Starbucks in Europe, right?
Akin to it, yeah.
What's going to be important for him? One, he's got to make sure, you better pray to God he has a bar in a hotel. That's going to be like a second home, because I pretty much ended every night, I thought actually the hotel had a secret bar on the 26th floor that few people found out about. I could just go up there and unwind at the end of the day.
Kind of a speakeasy.
There were some hotels in Beijing that did not serve alcohol. And all the NBC people stayed at a hotel that was dry, and it was driving them up the wall. Matt Hamilton of the U.S. curling team found out that there was a bar at that hotel and started hanging out there at night after matches. So finding a place to have a cold one at the end of the day is vital. And you got to time. Make sure you time the time, how long it takes for you to get from the hotel to whatever the media center is.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty important. Although he's going to spend most of the time at the hockey rink too. He's not going to be going around the country, looking at speed skating or cross country skiing or snowboarding or things like that. So for him, he's just going to have to figure out if he even wants to go to the media center, or if he's just going to take a beeline straight from the hotel to the rink. And he has to make sure he's got mark his territory at the hockey press box, so he can have a place he can go to every day. So
those are good tips. Those are good, because those are not like tips you're going to find in a manual, but they're real life tips that matter to people. So that's a pretty good. Even your willingness to be self-deprecating. I mean, that was pretty well done.
Thanks a lot. The timing. Going from our hotel to the media center in Beijing, that was important to me. Well, we used to take the same route. So there's actually in Beijing, there's like a museum of the Communist Party, and we used to pass it every day. This big gleaming building, and I'm sitting next to Helene Elliott of the LA Times, and I'm like, I wonder what type of exhibits they would have in that museum. And she was like, I wonder what they're selling in the gift shop. So those moments like that kind of help the day go by a little quick.
Yeah,
it can get mundane. Days can be long too. And, but Russo's a rink rat, so he's probably going to be in his realm, covering both the men's and the women's hockey teams.
Well, you hit on a really key thing in my own Olympic experience, is that it's over the years, and this covers time in Dallas and here, that it was always amusing to me for other people you worked with to say, well, you need to go do this, and this, and you say, wait a minute. You're going to the rink every day, which is like 10 minutes from where we live. I'm going up the mountain, which takes 2.5 hours each way to get there. That's a little bit unequal. So when it comes to figuring out who's doing what, That's the most underrated thing of it because, as you say, depending on the location, you could have huge distances between where you're staying or the media center or the venue where you're actually trying to be on the scene covering the event.
Exactly. And having covered, that was my first Olympics. I never covered any skiing event ever, and
That's the
it was 2.5 hours to get to the mountain.
Exactly.
To the ski center. And we had to get on a bullet train that went 250 miles an hour. And we rode on that for about an hour to get out. And then you had to take, how many buses? Was it one or two? Had to take 2 buses to get to the base of the mountain. And then we had to get on 3 different types of gondolas to get up to the top, and it's it's quite a journey. And one day I went to go cover an event, and by the time I got there, it was canceled because of high winds.
I've been there with you.
So I lost 5.5 hours of travel time for nothing.
Excellent point.
So that's quite an experience. But I will tell you that standing at the bottom of that mountain and looking up, and I'm like, Paula Moulton and Lindsey Vonn and Michaela Schiffer, and they ski down this stuff. They are nuts.
Yes, they are.
They are nuts for doing it. And then, unfortunately, Lindsay got injured today, apparently, or yesterday.
Yeah.
In an event. She may not go, but she thinks she's got a chance to compete. So we'll see.
Appreciate the work. What do you got? What's the Sunday column?
My Sunday column was what I am expecting to see, or what I want to see the most out of this Winter Olympics.
Oh, good. Okay.
A column that may be preempted because of the firings today and follow-up. We got follow-up packages running in Sunday's edition, so I might be online only Sunday and nothing in the physical paper.
That's okay. That's legal. That's not a problem. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll chat next week. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Lavelle Neal III joining us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. He mentioned Lindsey Vonn. I do want to get to a little bit more on that story. We'll also talk about, we got a couple of interesting texts that came in, and there was something else that I wanted to try to explore before we wrapped up this program. It'll come to me, hopefully, during this very short pause.
Yeah.
Kwesi and Falvey out today. Nick Shirley expose. Barrero's sanity slipping away. Wolves in 5. I had a couple good ones really early in the show, and I can't go back that far because we got so many texts today. It's crazy. So I appreciate all the efforts in that regard. On this day, Gaardsy, 4/26, 30 years ago. Do you know what happened on this day in sports? 30 years ago. And I'll give you another clue. I was there to cover it. Jan 30, 1996. 96.
Did the Timberwolves beat the Bulls with Michael Jordan?
No. Well, they might have, but that's not the occasion. No, this was Magic Johnson playing in his first NBA regular season game in nearly 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was, I want to say, a day or two after a Super Bowl that was in Arizona. I was out in that direction. And I convinced the bosses, hey, let me find a way to get to, and as it was the morning after getting out of wherever, I think, again, it was Arizona, to get to L.A., I was waitlisted on about 20 flights before I actually got on one, I felt like. But then I did get there in time. And
like
then the
Catherine
next night,
O'Hara was in Home Alone.
That's it. And he was transcendent. 19 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds off the bench. The Lakers beat Golden State 128-118. Now, as it turns out, and I honestly thought at the time, he's back forever. He's going to be back for years. But that was his last season. He played in more games after that, but then he cut it off. That was the end of the Magic, the part 2 of the Magic Johnson run.
You watched the Steelers lose to the Cowboys 27-17 at Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe, Arizona.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I can't imagine having a Super Bowl at Sun Devil Stadium in the mid-90s.
You know what's sad about my memory on a lot of stuff is a disaster. And by the way, I don't think that's a function of age. It always has been. And then there's other stuff that is clear as day. And you know what I remember more than anything else from that occasion? is when I tried to convince, I suggested, hey, I'll find a way to get to L.A. This is a big event. Let me cover it. I'm not that far, blah, blah, blah. And before I got I technically had to get permission for the Star team to pay for it. This is how sad it could be inside that building sometimes. The answer I got from a couple of people was, why do we need to do that? How is that our story? How small-minded do you have to think at a metro newspaper to think that you can only cover local stuff, that you have people who've been covering stuff for years and presumably decent at what they do, and we got a chance. He's volunteering for it. It's a pain in the ass, to be honest with you, to get there. And that was the comeback was, well, that's not really our story. There was, from time to time in that building, some of the most small-minded thinking that you could possibly imagine. But eventually, I won them over. But I shouldn't have had to convince them, is my point,
Well, you mentioned your memory. I think I found a thread.
Oh.
Anytime you've been wrong, do you remember it?
That could be
Anytime
true.
you've been
so
slighted.
it's a Gumble-like kind of a thing.
A little bit.
It's
yes.
the Gumble thing where
the
enemies list that I keep for the pallbearer list, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. There's some truth to that.
Because I think a lot of people are like that. We remember.
Yeah, it's sad in a way.
It is, but we're humans.
Yeah, that's part of it's true too.
By their own argument, then they didn't need to send you to the Super Bowl. Really,
well, exactly. It's just what are we doing? I had like a potpourri. So from the A section today, the news is that now your guy Don Lemon, I think, has been arrested. He got arrested, I think, in L.A.
Yes,
for
where he lives.
His part in he attended the church
worship
protest,
service.
right? The worship service that got interrupted. This isn't the popular notion from people what they want to hear if you're on the left necessarily, because I'm not somebody, having been in my business as long as I have and have as much respect as I have for the journalism business, who generally approves of the detention or arrest of people in the newspaper business or the journalism business. But I got to tell you, Don Lemon's not at the top of my list. In fact, there's a story that concerns me a lot more because it involves a Washington Post reporter named Hannah Nathanson. Her devices, the FBI seized several of her devices earlier this month. And as Eric Wemple writes via X, the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press said this is the first time the U.S. Justice Department has raided a journalist's home in connection with a national security leak investigation. I'll be honest. I'm a lot more interested in falling on the sword for her, a real reporter, than I am Don Lemon, who I think has become kind of a caricature of himself. And I said this, if you'll recall, a couple weeks ago. The biggest, when there was discussion about whether they might attempt to arrest him, and actually I think a judge turned down their first effort to do it. And they finally found somebody who said yes, I guess. So I said, here's my free advice to the righties. Don't arrest him. If you arrest him, all you're doing is giving him an even bigger platform than he otherwise would have and more attention
I agree with
than
that.
he would otherwise have.
And he loves the martyrdom role, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You turn him into a martyr. And I saw today, whatever his network online thing is, there were like 23 million people paying attention to it. I said, he's won. You've handed the victory to a guy who, as far as I'm concerned, stopped being a journalist a long time ago. Now, he can say, well, I was covering it, and he was. But if you listen to some of the questions he asked, I would suggest he was doing what we in the business call advocacy journalism more than real, old-fashioned, traditional journalism, where you're attempting to bring something to light and you're letting the story play out as opposed to trying to be a part of it. But I'll just say it's never a good look for me when reporters get arrested. But I just have a hard time putting him at the top of the list when it comes to this sort of issue, because I just think he's as I said earlier, I just think he's a caricature. I think he's become more about being an entertainer and an advocate, which is not illegal, but I don't think there's anything repertorial or journalistic about that either. So, after annoying, I'm sure, A lot of Sharks maybe have anointed a few Jets with this position because I know what I'm supposed to say is it's an outrage, and it's Don Lemon. He's a reporter, and he's a hardworking reporter.
First Amendment is under attack.
Exactly, and it is under attack in a number of places. But I'm more interested in fighting the fight for this Washington Post reporter because that's a reporter, right? That's somebody who's actually trying to report on stuff, not do whatever it is at this point, at this late date, post CNN, that I think Don Lemon is. Let's break. I got one more text I want to read when we come back. We'll wrap up the program, remind you what we have coming up later tonight and what you might have missed on a very busy show today.
Man.
Show Wrap is presented by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
I want to thank our outstanding array of guests today. Ben Gessling, kind enough to come into studio on a great day, a timely day, given the news that the Vikings made earlier this late morning on Kwesi. Good hour of discussion with him between 3:30-ish or so and 4:30. Thank you for his contributions, as always. Brought to you by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Podcastable, downloadable. We had John Bream, who attended the Bruce Springsteen concert at, you know what I forgot to ask him? Was that the first time Springsteen has played there, I wonder? Do we know? Do you know if that's... I should have asked him, and I didn't. I guess I should know, but I'm not a hardcore Springsteen guy.
Right.
So I don't know.
I don't know. I'll do a quick Google and see.
Maybe do a quick Google to see at First Ave. But we had a good talk about that. And the whole issue of singers offering up their commentary in politics, et cetera, which is an age-old debate. Lavelle on everything, including the Twins move that was announced earlier before, actually, the Kwesi news broke as well. So all that available to you. What's tonight? Do we have anybody playing tonight?
Not really. Not on the Fan.
Okay.
We have Gopher Hockey on Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130.
When do Gopher men's basketball? When do they play?
This weekend at Penn State.
At Penn State, where you just were.
Where I just was. Women play Purdue on Sunday.
And you've won, is it 3 in a row or 2? Or is it 4? What's your current winning streak? 3. Okay. 3 straight?
Is it 3? Yes, it's 3.
That's your team.
I know. I get all the games confused.
We destroyed somebody, didn't we? What, our
Penn
last
State
game,
recently,
Penn State.
Wisconsin the other day.
The Badgers, that was it, exactly. Real quick, a text.
3 in a row, because they beat Oregon, too.
Okay. That gets into one of the meltdowns I had earlier today. Nick from Minneapolis writes, in response to Steve from Florida, who had offered up a strong commentary that I tried to fire back on. And here's the message that Nick would like Steve to understand if he's still listening. I hope he is. Both my kids are biracial. My ex-wife is Jen from Peru. And within the last 3 to 4 weeks, my ex-wife has been pulled over 3 times. One time she was stopped going into a convenience store, and they demanded that to see her documents, whether she was a United States citizen. She's a prime profile target for what the ICE agents are looking for right now. Brown skin, heavy accent. One of the times she had to stay in the back of a vehicle for 3 to 4 hours while she was on her way to pick up her children from school. So I'm curious from Steve from Florida, is he okay with U.S. citizens getting profiled almost every other day and scared to go out the door because they don't look like you? Dan, thanks for everything you do. I do enjoy your show. Wish you've never retired. Some days I wish I did yesterday, and then some days not so much. But I appreciate the words.
I thought you were waffling a little bit, right around 5'10".
Might have been.
Or we might just lose you.
But I think, again, it's an important message that needs to be part of this discussion if we're going to be fair and honest to everybody involved. I have a hunch we're going to get some Andy Luger next week, and it might be in conjunction with some stuff that has some significance. We'll see. There's a lot of people working behind the scenes doing a lot of work. We'll see if there's anything new from a news standpoint, but it's always good to have him on regardless of that. That might be coming up as well. Enough Said tonight. You hear the Enough Said music. So we will be on, Gaardsy tells me, at 10 o'clock on Fox 9. On the Plus, is it regular time, or do we know?
I don't believe we're on the Plus.
Oh, okay, we're off the Plus.
Because they have some sports as well.
So 10 o'clock's not bad. We're usually at 9:30. It is a night where we kidded about how easy it would have been to go a full hour. Given the toy department late developments that we were able to pursue, we were not able to include Catherine O'Hara, unfortunately, because that happened even later, so we couldn't squeeze that in. But the first segment is a lot of the A section material that we've been dealing with for quite some time. And then there's, as I said, plenty from the toy department, including the two, well, one of them is, I guess, a dismissal. One of them is a combo platter. Although I think, as we talked about with Lavelle, there's a good chance that part of what ended up happening is maybe even Falvey said, I've had enough. I mean, Lavelle flatly says he doesn't think it was Falvey's idea to gut the bullpen. Which, again, if true, in of itself, to me, if you're running the team, you say, well, I got to go now, right? Because it's like, if you can't be the check and balance that says, you have me in charge of the team, right? I can't do that in good conscience and continue in this job. But is it possible there was another decision coming that even he said that's enough? Is it more consequential than that? Does it have to do with other issues? I don't know. But it's a shock because when it happens 2 weeks before spring training, it's not in anybody's plan. It's not any part of any larger plan. It's an unraveling of sorts. And how it will affect this team moving forward, we don't know. Short run, they're going with GM guy to be the baseball guy, basically.
Sounds like a great interview. We should probably try to have him in studio.
Man, oh man.
How about that?
Oh,
when you ask about Lavelle, goes, he speaks more in cliches than anybody you know. Oh, great.
I don't even know how that... We have maybe it's true in every town now. Maybe they're also conditioned to learn to say... Yeah, the art of learning to say absolutely nothing, but doing it in enough words that you fool people into thinking that you're actually giving them something. You know?
But it's not even that. I don't think anybody is fooled, and I don't think they think they're fooling. I just think they're talking to talk and checking that box that, well, we talked to the media, and they didn't say anything.
We got a lot of that in this town right now. We got a lot of town. A lot of that. There's quite a bit of that.
You know who's not like that?
Who?
Nico. And if they win more games and people start to hear more, Nico gets after it pretty good.
Yeah, he does.
He says some stuff. It's fun. I actually like it. It's very fun.
Kwesi, Adolfo-Mensah fired. Twins and the poll ad still in a quagmire. Wolves in 5. It's not bad. Not bad, I guess. Not bad. I can't read that one. I'm going to leave that one alone.
I got one here.
Oh, do you?
Kwesi gets sacked. Falvey told to pack. Bruce sings the Minneapolis track. O'Hara Home Alone flashback. Wolves in 5.
That's a good summary of the show, too. That works out pretty well. Is Lavelle really concerned about the coffee quality in Italy? Well, not for himself. I think he's concerned for
Russo, who lives on it.
Because Russo exists on it.
That was very thoughtful, I thought,
it is.
of Lavelle.
And how self-deprecating is Lavelle? Well, the underwear thing worked for me in part because my underwear is probably larger than Russo's underwear. Well, part of it is, are you a boxer guy? Because boxers are bigger in general.
They are, yeah.
So that's going to take up more room.
Than a brief.
Than a brief. Now, a boxer brief is somewhere in between, but you got to factor it in.
And before you even ask, I don't want to know what either of them prefer. That's not how we need to end the week.
Yeah, maybe we find out from Russo first time we have him on from Italy.
Why don't you do that Thursday?
When is Bill Guerin going?
Probably pretty quick.
I better text him.
Yeah, do that Thursday the 5th when I'm in Iowa City.
You know what we have to have on? I'm going to vow to get him before the NBA trade deadline, Tim Conley. We haven't had him on in a long time. Maybe we can get him.
Well, you got less than a week.
When?
Exactly right.
Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you Sunday morning at 9.
Well, go Twins. Thank you for the airtime, and I'll talk to you soon.